Well, here we are to do a walk around of another bike, the latest bike I have obtained, and there it is. It's a fairly famous bike because it belonged to Steve, who has a YouTube channel called Steve's Hornet 900, and that's the very 900 that Steve has done several years of trips on, so it's got loads of character. Now everyone that follows his channel knows that he's frittered away some of his inheritance, and he's got another Hornet. And I can tell you that the Hornet that he's got is pretty much as new. Little over 3,000 miles on it when I delivered it to him. And a long time ago I'd said to him that I would offer him more than the part exchange value for his old bike, because I liked a character that was instilled in the bike. And cut a long story short, the new Hornet was located, and part of the deal was that as I had a trailer, I would collect the bike and deliver it to him at Great Harwood, or Harewood, where he lives. Not sure how you pronounce it. And so I took his bike up for him and brought this one back, which is now mine. And I spent certainly well over a month refurbishing it, because it had, as everybody knows, a lot of use. Now Steve used it winter and summer, whatever the weather, unless there was a lot of snow on the ground. Otherwise it was just used, so it was subject to salt and wet and every conceivable nastiness for a long time. And I was quite surprised, and it's a it just shows how good Honda are, really, that there really wasn't that much corrosion in it. There was certainly salt corrosion on the aluminium, so we'll sort of start off at the back end here, and the swinging arm was very pitted. It still got salt pitting in it, but I attacked it with various grades of wet and dry and various things, and managed to polish most of it out, and that will improve as time goes on. It's looking pretty good. I've had the whole of the back end to pieces and repainted everything. Very little problem really. There were one or two nuts and bolts that were well and truly corroded in, but managed to overcome those problems. I did fit a new rear disc because the other one had a fair bit of wear in it, and I changed the pads, although they didn't really need changing because they were only a third worn. And a year or two back, Steve had refurbished his front brakes and put new discs on, and they are perfect. They really are good, these brakes, Nissins. I had them on the Firestorm, and basically they're blade brakes, fire blade brakes, and these are just as good as they are on the VTR. Excellent brakes. Everything else is more or less the same, except I've cleaned everything off. I've decided to allow the dents and scratches to be a testimony to the use that it's had over the years. So The tank does have a few little knocks and abrasions, but I'm quite happy with that. The engine bars were quite badly rusted, but they're aftermarket, and I sprayed those with a zinc high build filler, and most of the rust pits have gone, and then I resprayed them silver rather than black because he'd sprayed the engine black. I decided to do the engine bars silver, the same as the sump, because he had a belly pan on it before, which is now on his, well, it's not new, but we'll call it his new bike. And the other thing he had was the handlebar fairing, well, it's fly screen, really big fly screen he had, and we swapped those over, so I've got the original Puig, which works really well, I've found on my first trip, and he's put his old one on because it gives better protection. Apart from that, I've tried to keep it pretty much the same. I've cleaned everything off. The discs and the calipers I've cleaned off and repainted, and I've done them in the sort of popular gold colour because I like the look of it. I've got them on my Interceptor and on the Hayabusa, and I really like them. They look nice, I think. If a caliper can look nice. But I like them anyway, and that's all that counts. So I took everything off and repainted it all. The wheels have been cleaned and resprayed. Bike's just come back from its MOT, so there's a bit of muck on it. That was its first trip, incidentally, to the MOT station with me on it. I've ridden it round the garden a time or two, but that's all. And that was when I discovered that the front forks, the left-hand seal was leaking, and that would have been an obvious MOT fail. So I decided to completely refurbish the front forks, so they've been removed completely, and bushes, seals, everything has been replaced, and yeah, they work okay, which is nice. I don't need all the weather equipment that Steve had put on it. He had mud flaps and various bits and pieces here and there. This won't be used even in the wet, let alone the winter wet. And like an old donkey, the bike is now in semi-retirement, and it will have a sort of summer life. And as I say, a lot of the stuff that Steve had on there was for the commute. He needed various improvements to cope with the traffic that he was dealing with. Well, this won't really be dealing with any traffic. Well, it will, but not much. So he had twin loud horns on it, which I didn't need, and I was trying to make it fairly minimal, keep the bike light, which I seem to have done reasonably well because it does ride nicely. In my collection I had an old 1980s Honda horn, which wasn't working, but being Honda they were adjustable, and with a bit of work I managed to make it work. So we've got a 1980s horn on it, which is quite good actually. Up top I removed the mirrors and put the chrome ones on because I like them better. I like the chrome ones, and again those mirrors came off of a 1980s bike, and they're pretty much as good as new, and they work nicely. I was very pleased with them when I went for my trip, my first run. I've done a lot of rewiring on it to suit my taste, and it's pretty much the same, but I've made things a little easier to get to, and that's about it really. The heated grips were an added bonus. Now Steve didn't want to take those off, so I was very pleased that they were included in the deal, and all I've done is just try and tidy the wiring up, which is difficult with the Oxford grips. They give you great long lengths of cable, but I've managed to tuck most of it away under the tank, and they seem to work beautifully. And other than that, I've put a sat-nav connection mount on. You can see that round mount on the handlebars, so I can put a phone on or a sat-nav, which I will at one point, because I need to check the accuracy of the speedo. Because if I now go to the other side of the bike, Steve, a year or two back, changed the chains and sprockets, and when he did, he put a slightly different geared rear sprocket on, and obviously it peps it up, but of course it will lose out on top speed because of that, and it will also lose out on petrol economy. I'm not quite sure if it will also affect the accuracy of the speedo, so I will need to do a check with the sat-nav. But then, given that all bikes read incorrectly anyway, it seems they're usually 5 to 10% fast, I just need to know what's accurate and what isn't. But as you can see, this side is looking just as nice. I've done quite a bit of cleaning up, because there was quite a bit of chain lube underneath over the years, and as I say, a lot of the paintwork had become spoiled and pitted because of the weather. Not too bad, but I've polished up some of the aluminium rather than repaint it. And a good example is this rail. The paint was rubbing off a bit, it was silver sprayed, so I decided to clean the whole thing off, and worked on it with various grades of wet and dry and various papers, and with a good old Solvo Auto Sol managed to polish it up, because I like polished aluminium, always have done. That's one of the things I used to like about I like about my old British bikes. I like the aluminium. And same with these covers here. These were sprayed, but the paint was on the way out, so I cleaned the paint off and polished them, and they've come up nicely. And ditto with the headlamp. I took the headlamp brackets off, cleaned the paint off, and polished them, and I think they look rather nice. I had to put a brand new headlight on. The old one had suffered some problems. One of the main problems was that the rim was virtually rusted through from the inside with the constant bad weather. And also there were one or two other little problems, and the easy way to deal with it was just to buy a cheap replacement, which that one is. It was really extremely good value. There's a bit of a squeeze to get all the wiring in, but did manage. And I've got my usual twin spots down here, adjustable spots, for motorway use, and I have actually been down the motorway and I have used them. And as I have said before, when you see adventure bikes on the motorway as a driver, a car driver, you are very aware of the headlamp and the two spots. They really do shine out. And so I thought, any bike I use on the motorway, eventually I will put a similar system on, because you really